The call came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night, and I'll never forget the way my nephew's voice sounded when I answered. I was still in my paramedic uniform, heating up leftover Chinese food after a 12-hour shift, when my phone lit up with Little Man Colton and a superhero emoji next to his name. Uncle Wade? His voice was barely a whisper, choked with tears that made my chopsticks freeze halfway to my mouth. Please help me. They locked me in the basement and I can hear them arguing about me upstairs. My name is Wade Morrison, and I'm 32 years old. For the past 5 years, I've been more than just an uncle to Colton. When his father walked out on my sister Deanna right after Colton's second birthday, I stepped up. I was the one who taught him to ride a bike, checked for monsters under his bed, and never missed a single Little League game. That kid wasn't just my nephew. He was the son I'd never had. Colton is 7 now, with sandy brown hair that sticks up no matter how much you try to tame it, and these bright green eyes that light up whenever he talks about dinosaurs or superheroes. He's the kind of kid who shares his lunch with classmates who forget theirs and cries when he accidentally steps on bugs. He calls me his superhero uncle because I save people as a paramedic, but that night his trembling voice told me he was the one who needed saving. My sister Deanna is 29, and she's always been the trusting type. Too trusting, our mother used to say. After Colton's father left, she struggled for years as a single mom, working 2 jobs while I helped watch Colton whenever I could. Then, 8 months ago, she met Garrett Hendricks at a coffee shop. He was 34, worked as an investment banker, drove a Tesla, and seemed to worship the ground Deanna walked on. Within 3 months, he'd moved into her house. Within 5 months, they were married at City Hall with just a handful of witnesses. I wasn't even invited until the last minute. "Colton, buddy, slow down," I said, already grabbing my keys, my dinner forgotten on the counter. "What do you mean they locked you in the basement?" "Garrett told Mom I ran away to my friend Brody's house, but I didn't, Uncle Wade. I've been down here since right after dinner. It's so dark, and there's weird stuff everywhere." The terror in his voice hit me like a physical blow. This was the same kid who'd called me excited about losing his first tooth just last month, who'd begged me to take him to see the new superhero movie, who trusted that adults would keep him safe. Now, he was whispering into a phone like his life depended on it, and something in my gut told me maybe it did. My apartment was quiet except for the hum of the microwave reheating what was supposed to be my dinner. I'd just finished a brutal 12-hour shift, the kind where you lose 2 patients despite doing everything right, and all I wanted was to eat my orange chicken and zone out to whatever game was on, ESPN. The living room was exactly how I'd left it that morning, medical journals stacked on the coffee table, my work boots by the door, and on my desk, that photo from last summer that always made me smile. It was from our camping trip to Pine Ridge Lake, just Colton and me. He's holding up this tiny fish, grinning like he'd caught a whale, wearing the fishing vest I'd bought him that was still 2 sizes too big. That was the weekend he'd started calling me his superhero uncle, right after I'd shown him how to properly bait a hook and told him stories about my work as a paramedic. "You save people every day, Uncle Wade," he'd said with such awe in his voice. "That makes you better than any superhero in the movies." The phone rang at 11:47 p.m., and seeing his contact photo made me smile despite my exhaustion. Colton had programmed it himself last time he was over, insisting on adding the superhero emoji because that's what you are. But when I answered with my usual cheerful, "Hey buddy, shouldn't you be in bed?" the sound that came through the speaker made my blood run cold, muffled sobbing. Not the kind when a kid doesn't get their way or scrapes their knee. This was different. This was fear. "Uncle Wade?" His voice was so small, so broken. "I'm scared." "Garrett locked me down here and told Mom I ran away to my friend's house. But I didn't. I'm in the basement and it's so dark and I can hear them fighting about me." I stood up so fast my chair tipped backward. "Colton, what are you talking about? Where's your mom right now?" "She's upstairs with him." Uncle Wade, he told her I was at Brody's house for a sleepover, but that's not true. He made me come down here after dinner. He said I needed to learn about consequences, but I didn't do anything wrong, I swear. My mind raced back through the past few months, picking up pieces I'd ignored. 3 weeks ago, when I'd stopped by unannounced to drop off Colton's birthday present, Garrett had met me at the door, blocking my entry. "Deanna's not feeling well," he'd said with that practiced smile that never reached his eyes. "Maybe call first next time?" When I finally did see them the following week, our visit lasted exactly 1 hour before Garrett claimed they had dinner reservations. Colton had hugged me extra tight that day, whispering, "I miss you," into my ear. "Listen to me very carefully," I said, pulling on my jacket with one hand while holding the phone with the other. "Are you hurt? Did anyone touch you or hurt you?" "No, but, Uncle Wade, there's weird stuff down here. There are boxes with other kids' names on them, like written in black marker. Aiden, 2019, and Jeffrey, 2021, and they have clothes and toys inside. The temperature in my apartment seemed to drop 20 degrees. You're looking in the boxes?" I was trying to find something to keep warm. "It's cold down here and he took my blanket." "Uncle Wade, whose stuff is this? Why would Garrett have other kids' things in our basement?" I was already in my truck, the engine roaring to life. Deanna's house was 15 minutes away if I obeyed traffic laws. I wasn't planning to. "Colton, is there anything else down there? Any papers or computers or anything?" "There's a folder on the shelf." I used my phone flashlight to look at it. His voice dropped even lower. "Uncle Wade, there are emails about placement fees, and something about temporary custody arrangements. One of them has tomorrow's date on it with an address in Phoenix. What does placement mean?" My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. In my 5 years as a paramedic, I'd seen enough darkness to recognize when something was dangerously wrong. The isolated basement, the boxes with children's belongings dated like inventory, documentation about placement fees, and now my nephew locked down there with a story being spread about him running away. "Buddy, you did exactly the right thing calling me. I'm coming to get you right now. Can you hide somewhere safe down there? Somewhere where Garrett won't see you if he comes down. There's a space behind the water heater. I can fit there." "Good. Go there now and keep your phone on silent. If you hear anyone coming down those stairs, you hide and you stay quiet. I'm 8 minutes away." "Uncle Wade?" His voice cracked. "I'm really scared." "I know, little man. But remember what I always tell you. Courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing the right thing even when you are scared. And you're the bravest kid I know for calling me. Just hold on, your superhero uncle is coming." My truck tore through the empty suburban streets as Colton's breathing echoed through my phone's speaker. I'd switched to my wireless earbuds to keep both hands on the wheel, pushing 60 in a 35 zone. The streetlights blurred past like ghosts while my nephew whispered discoveries that made my stomach churn. "Uncle Wade, I found more boxes. There's one that says Terrence, 2020, and another one labeled Miguel, 2018. Each box has clothes, some toys, and a notebook with dates and weird codes. Don't touch anything else, Colton. Just stay hidden. Tell me exactly what happened tonight at dinner." I heard him shifting, probably squeezing deeper behind the water heater. Mom made spaghetti, my favorite, but she seemed really tired, like she kept forgetting things. She put salt in her coffee instead of sugar and didn't even notice until Garrett pointed it out. Then, after dinner, Garrett said I needed to help him with something in the basement. When I got down here, he pushed me inside and locked the door. He said I needed to think about my behavior, but I hadn't done anything bad. My mind processed this information with clinical precision, the same way I assessed trauma patients. Deanna's confusion could indicate she was being drugged. The basement setup wasn't impulsive. This was planned. "What did you hear them saying upstairs?" At first, Mom was asking where I was. Garrett kept saying I was at Brody's house, that he'd driven me there himself. Mom sounded confused, like she couldn't remember. Then she said she wanted to call Brody's mom to check, and Garrett got really mad. He said she didn't trust him, and that maybe they should talk about their future if she couldn't believe her own husband. I took the turn onto Maple Ridge doing 40, tires squealing, 5 more minutes. Colton, this is important. Has Garrett ever taken you anywhere alone? Any trips or appointments where your mom didn't come? Yeah, actually, last week he said he was taking me to the dentist, but we went to this office building instead. He made me sit in a room while he talked to some people. They kept looking at me through the glass door and writing things down. When I asked about it, he said we'd go to the dentist another day and gave me $20 not to tell Mom we missed the appointment. The pieces were forming a picture that made me want to put my fist through the windshield. Child trafficking. The boxes with names and dates were trophies or inventory. The meeting last week was probably showing Colton to potential buyers. Tomorrow's Phoenix address was likely a handoff point. Uncle Wade, I hear footsteps above me. They're arguing again. I strained to hear through the phone. Garrett's voice boomed through the floorboards. Deanna, you're being hysterical. The kid is fine at his friend's house. You're just confused because you're tired. Take your medicine and go to bed. Deanna's response was slurred but insistent. I want to see my son. Why won't you let me call him? Because it's midnight. You'll wake up the entire household. Besides, we already discussed this. Colton needs more structure than you can provide. The family in Phoenix will give him opportunities we can't. What family in Phoenix? Deanna's voice rose, suddenly sharper. What are you talking about? A door slammed. Heavy footsteps moved across the floor above Colton's hiding spot. He's coming, Colton whispered, terror making his voice crack. Uncle Wade, I think he's coming down here. Hide! Get behind the water heater now and turn your phone screen off, but keep me on the line. I heard scrambling, then Colton's rapid breathing. The basement door creaked open. Heavy footsteps on wooden stairs, each one deliberate and slow. Colton, Garrett's voice was fake friendly, the tone you'd use to coax a scared animal. Come on out, buddy. Your mom wants to say goodnight. Don't you want to see Mommy before your big trip tomorrow? My truck screeched into Deanna's driveway. Every light in the house was on. Through the earbuds, I heard Garrett moving boxes, getting closer to Colton's hiding spot. I know you're down here, kid. I can see the boxes have been moved. If you come out now, I won't be angry. We can even stop for ice cream on the way to Phoenix. Wouldn't that be fun? A road trip, just you and me? Killed the engine and sprinted to the front door. Locked. Through the window, I could see Deanna on the couch, her head lolling like she could barely stay conscious. A prescription bottle sat on the coffee table next to a glass of water. In my ear, Garrett's voice grew more impatient. Colton, I'm losing my patience. The nice family who wants to adopt you paid a lot of money. Don't you want parents who actually want you? Not like your mom who can barely take care of herself, or your uncle who only visits when it's convenient. That was it. I'd heard enough. I grabbed my phone with my free hand and dialed 911, giving them the address in a rapid whisper while Garrett continued his psychological torture below. But the dispatcher said units were 15 minutes out minimum due to a major accident across town. 15 minutes was too long. In 15 minutes, Garrett could find Colton, could hurt him, could run with him. In 15 minutes, my nephew could disappear into a system I was only beginning to understand the horror of. I had to make a choice, and I had to make it now. I stood on that front porch for exactly 3 seconds, weighing my options like I'd been trained to do in emergency situations. Wait for police and risk Garrett finding Colton. Try to reason with a man who was clearly running a child trafficking ring, or take action now and deal with the consequences later. The choice was obvious. I pulled out my phone and fired off a rapid text to my buddy Vance, a detective with the county sheriff's department. 428 Maple Ridge now. Possible child trafficking in progress. My nephew in immediate danger. I'm going in. Then I called Colton's phone again, whispering directly into his earbuds. Little man, I need you to stay completely silent. I'm coming for you. When you hear me yell your name, you run to me as fast as you can, okay? Okay, he breathed, barely audible. Through the window, I watched Deanna try to stand from the couch, only to collapse back down. Whatever Garrett had given her was strong. I circled to the back of the house, remembering the sliding door that Deanna never locked properly, the one I'd fixed 3 times but somehow always managed to come loose. Thank God for small favors. The door slid open silently. I crept through the kitchen, noting the prescription bottle on the counter. Rohypnol, prescribed to a Deanna Hendricks by a Dr. Maureen Caldwell. Except my sister's last name was still Morrison. She'd never legally changed it after marrying Garrett. This prescription was fake, and strong enough to cause memory loss and confusion. He'd been drugging my sister. I could hear Garrett in the basement, his voice carrying up through the floorboards. You know, Colton, your Uncle Wade isn't coming to save you. He doesn't even know you're here. By tomorrow morning, you'll be with your new family and everyone will think you ran away. Your mom won't even remember you were home tonight. My hands clenched into fists. I moved toward the basement door, which stood open at the top of the stairs. But first, I needed evidence. I grabbed Deanna's phone from the coffee table, using her thumb to unlock it while she mumbled incoherently. I started recording video, making sure to capture her drugged state and the pills on the table. Garrett? Deanna suddenly called out, her voice thick and confused. Where's my baby? Where's Colton? Heavy footsteps pounded up the basement stairs. Garrett emerged, his face flushed with frustration. He was bigger than I remembered, 6'3", with the build of someone who spent money on a personal trainer. But I had something he didn't, the element of surprise and the rage of an uncle protecting his nephew. Deanna, I told you, he's at a sleepover, Garrett said, then froze when he saw me standing in his living room. Wade? What the hell are you doing in my house? It's my sister's house, I said, keeping my phone recording, and my nephew called me. I know everything, Garrett. The kids in the boxes. Aiden, Jeffrey, Terrence, Miguel, the placement fees. The family in Phoenix who thinks they're adopting a boy tomorrow. His face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Surprise, fear, then cold calculation. You're trespassing. I'll call the police. Already did that myself. They're on their way. But here's what's going to happen right now. You're going to give me the key to that basement door, and I'm going to get my nephew. Garrett laughed, an ugly sound that made my skin crawl. You have no idea who you're messing with. I have connections you couldn't dream of. Judges, prosecutors, people who make problems disappear. You think some small-town paramedic is going to stop a network that's been operating for years? Maybe not, I admitted, taking a step closer. But I'm going to stop you from taking Colton. He moved toward the desk drawer where I'd noticed him reaching earlier. I knew that motion, had seen it too many times on calls gone bad. He was going for a weapon. I didn't give him the chance. I tackled him hard, my shoulder driving into his midsection. We crashed into the coffee table, sending the pill bottle flying. Garrett was strong, but I had 5 years of wrestling violent patients in the back of ambulances. I pinned his arm behind his back, using my knee to keep him down. Colton, I yelled. Run to me now. I heard the scrambling from below, small feet racing up the stairs. Garrett bucked underneath me, trying to throw me off. You don't understand. These kids were unwanted. Their parents couldn't handle them. We found them better homes, families who could give them everything. You mean families who bought them, I snarled, pressing harder on his pinned arm until he cried out. Colton burst into the room, his face streaked with tears and dirt. He ran straight to me, and I managed to pull him close with one arm while keeping Garrett pinned with the other. That's when I saw what Colton was holding, the folder from the basement. clutched against his chest like a shield. "I grabbed it, Uncle Wade," he said through his tears. "The folder with all the emails and the information about the other kids. I grabbed it when he was looking for me." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Garrett's struggles grew more desperate. "That evidence won't hold up. My lawyers will destroy you. You broke into my house, assaulted me." "Actually," I said, holding up Deanna's phone, which had been recording the entire time, "I entered my sister's house to check on her welfare after receiving an emergency call from my nephew. And this video clearly shows you admitting to trafficking children. But please, keep talking. The county prosecutor will love hearing about your network." The room suddenly filled with red and blue lights. Car doors slammed. Vance's voice boomed through a megaphone. "This is the sheriff's department. We're coming in." I held Colton tighter as he buried his face in my shoulder, his small body shaking with exhaustion and relief. "You did it, little man," I whispered. "You saved yourself and all those other kids. You're the real hero tonight." The front door exploded open, and Detective Vance Kruger rushed in with 4 uniformed officers, weapons drawn. I'd never been so relieved to see my old high school friend in full tactical gear. His eyes quickly assessed the scene. Me holding Garrett down, Colton clutched against my side, Deanna barely conscious on the couch. "Wade, you hurt?" Vance asked, signaling his officers to take over. "We're okay, but my sister's been drugged. She needs medical attention now." I released Garrett to the officers, who immediately cuffed him. I pulled Colton fully into my arms, lifting him up as he wrapped his legs around me like he used to when he was 4. "Mr. Hendricks, you're under arrest for false imprisonment, child endangerment, and suspected human trafficking," Vance said, reading Garrett his rights while another officer called for an ambulance. Garrett's demeanor shifted completely. Gone was the rage, replaced by an icy calm that was somehow more disturbing. "I want my lawyer." "You'll find this is all a misunderstanding. The boy was being disciplined for behavioral issues. My wife will confirm this when she's feeling better." "Your wife can't confirm anything right now because you've been poisoning her with Rohypnol," I shot back, pointing to the prescription bottle an officer was now bagging as evidence. Colton pulled back slightly from my shoulder, his green eyes wide. "Uncle Wade, there's something else. In the basement behind the furnace, there's a locked filing cabinet. I heard him on the phone yesterday saying the inventory list was secure. I think there might be more kids." Vance's expression darkened. He nodded to 2 officers. "Check the basement. Document everything. And call in the trafficking task force." What happened next was a whirlwind of controlled chaos. Paramedics arrived and began treating Deanna, starting an IV to flush the drugs from her system. She kept reaching for Colton, mumbling, "My baby," over and over while tears streamed down her face. A crime scene unit descended on the basement while Colton and I gave our statements in the kitchen. Then Officer Patricia Reeves emerged from the basement, her face pale. "Detective, you need to see this." Vance returned 10 minutes later, looking like he'd aged 5 years. He pulled me aside while a child services advocate sat with Colton, giving him juice and cookies. "Wade, that filing cabinet had detailed records of 14 children over the past 6 years. Names, photos, medical records, and placement fees ranging from $30,000 to $75,000 per child. There's correspondence with couples from 12 different states. Some of these kids were reported as runaways. Others were listed as private adoptions that Garrett facilitated through his supposed charity foundation." My stomach turned. 14 kids? Where are they now? That's what we're going to find out. The FBI is taking over from here. This is interstate trafficking. He paused, looking at Colton. "Your nephew's call tonight might have just broken open one of the largest child trafficking rings we've ever seen in this state." I walked back to Colton, who was drawing on a notepad the advocate had given him. He was sketching himself as a superhero, standing next to a taller figure labeled Uncle Wade. At the bottom, he'd written, "The night we saved everyone." "Hey, buddy, the police need to take some pictures of the basement and collect all that evidence you found. You did an amazing thing." He looked up at me with those serious green eyes. "Uncle Wade, why would Garrett want to sell kids? Don't people usually want to keep their children?" How do you explain that level of evil to a 7-year-old? Some people see children as things to make money from, instead of people to love. But what matters is that you were brave enough to call for help, and now those other kids can be found and saved. Deanna's voice suddenly cut through the room, stronger now that the IV was working. "Colton? Wade? Oh God, what did Garrett do? I remember pieces. He said Colton was somewhere else, but I knew that was wrong. I tried to think clearly, but everything was so foggy." The paramedic helped her sit up as she reached for us. I brought Colton over, and she pulled him into her arms, sobbing. "My baby, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have protected you." "It's not your fault, Mom," Colton said, patting her face with his small hands. "Garrett tricked you. He gave you bad medicine. But Uncle Wade came and saved us." Garrett was being led out in handcuffs when he made one last statement that chilled me to the bone. Those children were going to good homes. Wealthy families who could provide everything. You've condemned them to stay with parents who never wanted them, in poverty and neglect. You think you're heroes, but you've ruined their chances at better lives. Vance stopped walking and turned to face him. We already traced 2 of the recent placements. One boy was being forced to work 16-hour days on a farm in Nebraska. The other was found locked in a bedroom in Nevada, malnourished and showing signs of physical abuse. So spare us your twisted justification. As they dragged Garrett to the patrol car, more units arrived. The FBI Trafficking Task Force set up a mobile command center in the driveway. Neighbors gathered on the sidewalk, whispering and recording with their phones. The local news van pulled up just as Detective Ruiz from the task force approached me. "Mr. Morrison, your nephew is a hero tonight. Without his call and the evidence he preserved, we might never have uncovered this network. We're going to need extensive interviews with all of you. But right now, we have 14 families to notify and children to locate." I held Colton tighter as he yawned against my shoulder, the adrenaline finally wearing off. My sister leaned against us both, still shaky but gaining clarity by the minute. We were a broken family that had just survived something unimaginable, but we were together. "Uncle Wade?" Colton whispered as exhaustion overtook him. "Are we safe now?" "Yeah, little man, we're safe. And those other kids will be safe too, thanks to you." As the crime scene tape went up and the investigation intensified around us, I realized that this quiet suburban house had been hiding a nightmare that reached across the country. But tonight, one brave 7-year-old boy had brought it all crashing down with a phone call and the courage to speak up when everything seemed lost. 3 months have passed since that night, and our lives have completely changed. I'm sitting in my new living room watching Colton build a Lego police station on the carpet, his tongue poking out in concentration. The custody papers on my coffee table are signed and official. I'm not just Uncle Wade anymore. I'm his legal guardian while Deanna continues her recovery journey. The investigation that followed was massive. The FBI uncovered Garrett's network spread across 15 states, involving 23 children over 7 years. Some were reunited with biological families who'd been searching for them desperately. Others, whose adoptive situations were legitimate but facilitated through illegal payments, faced complicated legal battles. 4 children were rescued from abusive situations where they'd been purchased like property, forced into labor or worse. Garrett Hendricks was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. His network of buyers, fake document providers, and corrupt officials fell like dominoes. Dr. Maureen Caldwell, who'd been providing the prescriptions to drug-unsuspecting mothers, lost her medical license and faces 10 years. The investment firm where Garrett worked discovered he'd been using corporate resources to launder the trafficking money, leading to additional charges. Deanna lives in a recovery facility now, working through the trauma and the guilt. The systematic drugging had lasted 4 months, leaving gaps in her memory that torment her. Every Tuesday and Saturday, Colton and I visit. She's getting stronger, clearer, more like the sister I remember. Her therapist says she was a victim of calculated predatory behavior, targeted specifically because she was a single mother struggling financially. I should have seen the red flags, she told me last week, holding Colton's hand through the visiting room table. The quick marriage, the isolation from family, how he always had explanations for everything. But he made me feel special, protected, like someone was finally taking care of us. That's the insidious nature of predators like Garrett. They don't look like monsters. They look like salvation to people in vulnerable situations. Colton's in therapy too, working through the trauma with a specialist in childhood PTSD. He still has nightmares sometimes, waking up crying that he's locked in the basement. On those nights I sit with him, reminding him that he's safe, that his bravery saved lives. His therapist says he's remarkably resilient, that having a stable, loving environment is crucial for his recovery. The other day, he asked me something that stopped me cold. "Uncle Wade, do you think those other kids have someone like you?" "I hope so, buddy," I told him. "But because of what you did, they have a chance to find their someone." We've moved into a new house, a 3-bedroom rambler with a big backyard and no basement. Colton picked his room, the one with windows on 2 walls. "So I can always see outside," he explained. We painted it together, superhero blue with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. His favorite photo sits on his dresser. Us at Pine Ridge Lake, holding that tiny fish, both of us smiling like we'd conquered the world. I've changed too. I still work as a paramedic, but I've added another role, volunteer educator with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. I speak at schools and community centers about recognizing predatory behavior, the signs of trafficking, and the importance of listening when children reach out for help. Every presentation starts with the same message. One phone call can save lives. The signs were there all along if I'd known what to look for. The quick relationship progression, the isolation tactics, the way Garrett always had reasons to limit family contact, how Deanna's personality seemed to fade, becoming more dependent and confused, the mysterious appointments, the locked spaces in the house. These predators rely on people not connecting the dots, on families being too polite to ask hard questions. Last week, I received a letter forwarded through the FBI. It was from the mother of one of the recovered children, a boy named Aiden, who'd been missing for 3 years. She thanked us for giving her son back, for ending her nightmare of not knowing. She included a photo of Aiden with his family at his 10th birthday party, smiling and surrounded by people who loved him. That photo sits on my desk now, next to the one of Colton and me fishing. Colton's doing better every day. He's back in school, playing Little League, laughing at cartoons. But he's different too, more aware of the world's dangers, more protective of his friends. His teacher says he's the first to notice when classmates are upset, the first to tell an adult if something seems wrong. That hypervigilance might fade with time, or it might shape him into someone who helps others. Either way, I'll be here for the journey. Sometimes people ask if I regret how everything happened, if I wish I'd acted sooner or differently. The truth is, I'm grateful Colton had the courage to make that call. In his moment of absolute terror, locked in a dark basement surrounded by evidence of unimaginable evil, he reached out for help. He trusted that someone would answer, that someone would believe him, that someone would come. And that's the lesson I carry with me. Listen to children. Believe them when they tell you something's wrong. Don't explain away your concerns or ignore your instincts because someone seems nice or successful or helpful. Predators often appear to be pillars of the community. Garrett was on the board of 2 charities, coached youth soccer, attended church every Sunday. Evil doesn't announce itself. If this story resonates with you, if it makes you think about a child in your life who might need help, don't wait. Make the call. Ask the questions. Be the person who shows up. You don't need to be a superhero. You just need to care enough to act. Please like this video if it opened your eyes to the reality of child trafficking. Share it with others who need to hear this message, especially parents and anyone who works with children. Your share could help someone recognize the warning signs and save a child's life. Leave a comment about your thoughts or experiences, because these conversations matter. And subscribe to our channel for more real stories that shed light on important issues affecting families everywhere. Remember, Colton called me his superhero uncle, but that night he was the hero. A 7-year-old boy with a phone and the courage to whisper, "Uncle Wade, please help." That whisper brought down a trafficking ring and saved 14 children. Imagine what we could do if we all listened that carefully. Some bonds can't be broken, no matter how dark things get. And sometimes the smallest voices carry the most important messages. We just have to be ready to hear them.